It all started with a phone call I wasn't expecting, and definitely one I'll never forget. "Hey, just a heads up," my cousin said, her voice hesitant. "Your brother's moving into the old family house." I paused, confused. "What do you mean, moving in?" That house was still under my name. No one asked me anything. But apparently, while I was busy working out of state, my younger brother had packed his things, showed up with a moving truck, and claimed the house like it was his birthright. I wish I could say this came out of nowhere, but truthfully, things with my brother had always been complicated. He's charming when he wants to be, knows how to sweet-talk people into trusting him, and somehow always finds a way to get what he wants. But this was different. That house wasn't just property, it was our childhood. It held our memories, our mother's favorite curtains, the marks on the kitchen door where we measured our height as kids. And now, he had taken it without even a phone call. I tried reaching out. First politely. Then firmly. But every message went unanswered. And when I finally did get him on the phone, he brushed me off like I was overreacting. "It's the family house," he said casually. "We all grew up there. What's the big deal?" The big deal was that the house was left to me in our parents' will, because they trusted I would take care of it. And now that trust felt shattered, not by strangers, but by my own blood. At first, I didn't know what to do. Take legal action against my own brother? Kick him out? That's not who I am. I kept thinking about what my parents would have wanted. But the more I sat with it, the clearer it became, this wasn't about revenge. It was about fairness. About sending a message that trust can't be taken for granted, not even by family. So I made a choice. A bold, probably shocking one. I called my lawyer. Updated my will. And decided if my brother was going to take the house without asking, then I'd give it to people who actually deserved it. Complete strangers. Not for spite. But because sometimes, family isn't about who shares your blood, it's about who respects your boundaries. I didn't tell anyone what I did. Not yet. But the day he finds out who the house really belongs to now, that's going to be a story worth watching. And that's where this story really begins. I guess to really understand how things got to this point, you'd have to know what our family was like growing up. We weren't rich, but the house felt like a castle when we were kids. It sat on a quiet street, had a creaky front porch, and an old oak tree in the yard that we used to climb until Mom yelled for us to come down. My parents built their lives in that home. They worked hard, saved every penny, and made sure my brother and I never went without. It wasn't perfect, no family is, but there was love in those walls. That house meant something. After our parents passed, everything changed. I was the older sibling, more responsible, at least on paper. They left the house to me, probably because they trusted I'd know what to do with it. And I did. I kept it maintained. Paid the taxes. Kept their old things boxed up just the way Mom asked me to. My brother, on the other hand, drifted. He always had a bit of a wild streak, the kind of guy who'd disappear for months, then show up at family dinners acting like nothing happened. He was charming, sure. But unreliable. Over the years, we grew distant. Not out of hate, but because we lived such different lives. I had a job, a schedule, responsibilities. He chased freedom, bounced between gigs, always had a new plan that never quite panned out. But still, I never saw this coming. Walking into our home and acting like it was his. No warning, no discussion, just boxes in the hallway and his car in the driveway. What hurt the most wasn't even that he moved in. It was that he didn't think he had to ask. Like the house was just there for him, waiting. Like my role, my years of holding everything together, didn't matter. I didn't want to turn it into a battle. I didn't want lawyers or courtrooms or nasty text chains. But I couldn't ignore what he'd done either. And every time I drove past the house and saw new furniture through the window or his dog in the yard, the anger grew. He told our relatives he was just taking care of it for the family. Said I was too busy to appreciate what we had. That stung. Because in his eyes, I was the villain for not letting him do whatever he wanted. And maybe to some people, it looked like I was being cold. But they didn't see the years I spent preserving that place. The nights I stayed late fixing the roof. The way I kept Mom's garden going after she passed. I kept thinking, if he could take the house without asking, what else would he take? What else did he think he was entitled to? So when I rewrote my will, I didn't do it out of anger. I did it out of clarity. I found a local nonprofit that helps people find stable housing. People who've been through real struggles, people trying to rebuild their lives. I told my lawyer, when I'm gone, the house goes to them. But I never expected what would happen next. I didn't plan to check on the house again. I told myself to stay away, to let it go. But one evening, I found myself driving past, headlights off, just staring from down the block. The porch lights were on, and the windows glowed with a warmth that should have felt comforting, but all I felt was distance. That was supposed to be our family home, a place filled with history and love. Now it felt like a stranger's house. And the stranger was my own brother. He had changed the curtains. Took down the framed photo of our parents that used to hang by the stairs. Even the porch swing was gone, the one Dad built the summer after Mom got sick. I wanted to believe he was just making the place his own, trying to live his life. But every little change felt like he was erasing them, and erasing me. A few days later, I got a text from Aunt Lila. She asked why I didn't tell the family I gave up the house. I was confused. Turns out, my brother had been telling people that I didn't care anymore. That I handed it over to him so he could keep it in the family. He made it sound like I was the one walking away. And people believed him, because he was there, physically in the house, planting roots, while I was hours away working long days and keeping my distance. That's when the second wave of betrayal hit me. Not only had he taken the house without permission, but now he was changing the story. Making me look like the bad guy. Like I had abandoned our parents' legacy. And the worst part? No one even asked for my side. I guess because I wasn't there, I didn't count. I became the absentee sibling, the one who wouldn't understand. The more I sat with it, the more I started thinking, maybe this wasn't just about the house. Maybe it never was. This was about control. About being seen. My brother had always played the role of the underdog, the misunderstood one, the dreamer. But deep down, I think he resented me for being the one everyone relied on. Maybe taking the house was his way of finally winning. Of proving something. Meanwhile, I was caught in a strange silence. I didn't want to cause a scene, but keeping quiet was starting to feel like giving in. A few friends told me to sue him. Others said I should confront him face to face. But the truth is, I didn't want to fight over bricks and drywall. What I wanted was respect. And that was the one thing he never asked if I still deserved. I started to question everything. Had our parents made a mistake leaving the house to me? Would things have been different if they'd split it evenly? Or was this always going to happen the moment they were gone, the moment no one was left to keep us from falling apart? And then something unexpected happened. A letter arrived. Not from my brother, but from someone who had just moved into the neighborhood. Someone who had questions. Questions about who really owned that house. I stared at the envelope for hours before opening it. No return address, just my name in clean, careful handwriting. Part of me thought it might be from him, my brother, maybe some long overdue explanation or apology. But when I finally opened it, my heart dropped. It was from a neighbor I barely remembered, someone who used to walk their dog past our place growing up. Inside was a short note, polite but curious. They asked why the deed records listed me as the legal homeowner, but my brother was telling people otherwise. Apparently, he had started spreading the story that the house had been passed to him, off the record, as if I'd just handed it over without any paperwork. That's when I knew things had gone further than I thought. I called the county office the next morning. The house was still in my name, legally, nothing had changed. But what he was doing was more dangerous than I realized. He wasn't just occupying the home. He was claiming it publicly. Neighbors, friends, even distant family now believed the house was his. If anything happened to me, they'd assume he was the rightful owner. That made my stomach turn. I went to visit one more time. Not to argue. Not to start a fight. I just needed to see it again. One last time, before everything changed. I parked at the end of the block and walked the familiar sidewalk up to the house. The front yard looked cleaner than usual. The porch had been painted a new color, darker, colder. There were new plants in the flower beds, but Mom's rose bush was gone. I rang the doorbell. My hands were shaking. When he opened the door, he looked surprised. Not guilty. Not even annoyed. Just surprised, like he hadn't expected me to ever come back. He gave me that same easy smile he always used when we were kids, the one that got him out of trouble 1,000 times. "Hey," he said. "Didn't expect to see you here." I asked to come in. He hesitated for a second, then stepped aside. Walking through that house, it was hard to breathe. All the pictures had been replaced. New furniture. A giant TV where Dad's old record player used to be. It looked like a stranger's house, my house, in someone else's version. I asked him one simple question: "Why didn't you talk to me before moving in?" He shrugged. Said he figured I wouldn't care. That I had my life somewhere else. That I always had everything anyway. I couldn't believe it. After everything our parents had worked for, after everything I'd tried to preserve, he still saw me as the one standing in his way. And now, he'd convinced half the world the house was his, while I held the only thing that proved otherwise, the will. The title. The truth. And that's when it hit me, the house wasn't just a house anymore. It was a line in the sand. And the next move I made would change everything. I stood in that living room, still trying to process the mess this had become, when something caught my eye, a folder sitting half open on the kitchen counter. I don't know why I looked. Maybe instinct. Maybe the years of keeping everything organized for our family had trained me to notice out-of-place details. I stepped closer and saw the word refinance on the top page. My heart skipped. I picked it up. He had applied for a home equity loan. I flipped through the pages, documents with the address of our family house, listed under his name. Fake paperwork. He was trying to use the house, the one he didn't legally own, as collateral. I looked up at him. He knew I'd seen it. He didn't even flinch. "You weren't using it," he said flatly. "It's just sitting there." I needed a way to get ahead. "You wouldn't understand." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just about moving in anymore. This was fraud. He was forging ownership documents. And worse, he was about to gamble away everything our parents built just to fund another one of his reckless ideas. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From anger. From disbelief that someone I grew up with could look me in the eye and act like this was all perfectly reasonable. I wanted to shout. I wanted to drag him out of that house right then. But instead, I walked out. My mind was spinning, trying to piece everything together. It was no longer just about property or pride, this was legal, dangerous territory. If that loan went through, I'd be the one left cleaning up the mess. And he wouldn't think twice about leaving me to deal with it. I drove straight to my lawyer's office. I had to make things official. A restraining order. Legal notice of ownership. Anything to stop him before he made things worse. But while I was sitting in the waiting room, scrolling through my phone, I got a notification from the nonprofit I had quietly added to my will. They had posted a thank you message online, for a surprise housing donation pledged in someone's honor. My name. My house. The timing couldn't have been worse. My brother saw it. Of course he did. Within an hour, my phone blew up with texts. One from him stood out. Just 3 words: "What did you do?" He knew. And now, he wasn't just squatting in the house. He was furious. Panicked. Because suddenly, everything he thought he could quietly take was slipping away. And I realized I wasn't the only one who could escalate things. That night, the door to the house was left wide open. Not a mistake, a message. Lights on. No sign of him. But the TV was on, the faucet running, papers everywhere. He'd left in a hurry. Or worse, he was waiting for something. I stood outside the house again, but this time, I wasn't just passing by. The door was still open, like before. Lights on. Silence hanging in the air. I stepped inside slowly, heart pounding. Every instinct told me to turn back, to leave it alone, but I couldn't. Not now. Not after everything he'd done. The living room was a mess. Drawers open. Papers scattered. Something had happened. I called out his name. Nothing. Just the hum of the fridge and the soft buzz of a light flickering in the hallway. Then, from upstairs, I heard it, footsteps. Slow. Careful. I braced myself, every muscle tense. Then he appeared at the top of the stairs, disheveled, eyes wide, like he hadn't slept in days. "You really did it," he said quietly. "You're giving it away." I nodded. It was never just about the house. He stared at me, like he was seeing me for the first time. "You're throwing away our history. For strangers." I took a breath. "No, I'm saving it. From being turned into debt. Or worse, forgotten." He came down the stairs slowly, no longer angry, just defeated. "I needed a fresh start," he mumbled. "That house was my chance." "Then you should have asked," I replied. "You should have respected what it meant." That moment was the breaking point, not a dramatic fight, not yelling. Just silence. A shared realization that the damage had already been done. But before I could say anything else, he pulled a folder from under his arm and handed it to me. I opened it, expecting more fake loan documents, but it wasn't that. It was a signed letter. A withdrawal form from the bank. He had backed out of the refinance. I looked at him, stunned. "I couldn't go through with it," he said. "Not after I saw that post." "What you did," it made me think. For a second, I felt the tension lift. Maybe this was it, maybe we had finally hit the end of the storm. He said he'd pack his things, that he wouldn't fight it anymore. And part of me believed him. I even thought, for a brief moment, that we could find some peace. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something in the corner, a second set of documents on the desk, partially hidden. I picked them up. It was a lease. Dated 2 weeks ago. My brother had already rented out the back half of the house to someone else, under a fake name. He wasn't just living here, he'd been profiting from it. He saw the look on my face and froze. "It's not what you think," but it was. This time, I didn't yell. I didn't ask why. I just walked out and made the call. By morning, my lawyer filed the paperwork. Eviction. Fraud notice. And we locked the place down. The house was quiet now. Empty again. But not for long. Because the nonprofit? They were ready. A single mom and her 2 kids were moving in next month. And my brother? He disappeared. Until one day, I got another letter. From a lawyer. And this time, he was contesting the will. The letter from his lawyer sat unopened on my kitchen table for 2 full days. I kept walking past it, hoping maybe it would just disappear. After everything, the lies, the fake paperwork, the tenants he snuck in behind my back, I thought he was finally gone for good. But now he was trying to fight for the house. Again. I finally opened it late at night, heart heavy, not even angry anymore, just tired. The letter claimed my brother had a verbal agreement with me and that he had rights to the house as a contributing occupant. It was laughable, if it weren't so sad. He was trying to turn his mistakes into legal claims, dragging this whole thing back into conflict. But this time, I didn't panic. I didn't even call him. I let the lawyer handle it. Weeks passed. The nonprofit family moved in quietly, a mom named Sarah and her 2 kids, Max and Lila. I met them once, briefly, when they came by to see the space. Sarah cried when she walked through the front door. Her kids ran into the backyard like they'd just been handed a new world. And in that moment, all the anger, the tension, the heartbreak, it started to fade. The house felt full again. Not with conflict, but with hope. My brother never showed up to court. His lawyer withdrew after months of silence. Maybe he finally realized he was fighting a battle he couldn't win, or maybe he just moved on to someone else's roof. I stopped trying to figure him out. I had spent too many years trying to understand his choices, trying to fix things he didn't want fixed. I let that go. People still ask me why I gave away the house instead of selling it. They say I could have made a fortune. And maybe they're right. But for me, it wasn't about money. It was about meaning. That house raised 2 kids. It held birthday candles, report cards on the fridge, and late-night talks on the porch. It was supposed to be a place of safety, and I wanted it to be that again. Just for someone new. The biggest lesson? Family isn't always about blood. It's about respect, about doing the right thing even when it's hard. My brother made his choices, and I made mine. And even though it nearly tore everything apart, I came out of it knowing who I am. I chose peace. I chose purpose. And now, every time I drive past that house and see lights on inside, the kids' bikes on the lawn, the sound of laughter from the open window, I know I made the right choice. The home didn't disappear. It just found a new story. 35.